Welcome to the video. The main objective of this video is going to be learning how to use the unit circle to find exact values of trig functions. So this video, we're already going to have a filled-in unit circle. We'll briefly talk about the unit circle, and then we're just going to jump straight into how can I use that unit circle to find these exact values. So let's go. We see the unit circle here. Over on the right side of this unit circle, right above my head, right up here, I'm going to write down some very important information. You should probably write it down as well. So if you look at this unit circle, you have degree measurements, you have radian measurements, and then on the outside of the circle, you see coordinates. All right, so in this video, we're going to talk about how to find the exact values of 6 different trig functions. We have sine, cosine, tangent. Those are the well-known 3, but each of those 3 have a reciprocal function. All right, we'll talk about those reciprocal functions in a few minutes, but for now, let's just look at the sine, cosine, and tangent. All right, let's get the hang of those, and then we'll introduce the reciprocal functions in just a couple of minutes. So in this unit circle, sine of theta, so sine of any angle that you see on this unit circle, whether you're talking about that angle in degrees or you're talking about that angle in radians, sine of that particular angle is going to correspond to the y value of the coordinate on the unit circle. So we're going to put sine theta is equal to y. Okay? Cosine theta is equal to the x coordinate, or the x value of the coordinate, okay? And then another trig function is tangent. And so if you know anything about tangent, tangent is sine over cosine. And so if my sine value is y, my cosine value is x, then tangent is y over x. So we're going to use these relationships to find exact values of particular trig functions at particular angles. All right, so let's get it. The first one we're going to do is cosine of 60 degrees. To find cosine of 60 degrees, you're going to locate 60 degrees on your unit circle, okay? You're going to look at the x value of the coordinate, and we all see that that x value is 1/2. So cosine of 60 degrees is equal to 1/2. All right, let's look at, say, sine of 5 pi over 6. Okay, what's beautiful about using this unit circle is it doesn't matter if I'm looking at degrees or radians. The sine value is the y value, cosine value is the x value, whether that angle is given to me in degrees or radians. Because remember, radians and degrees are related to each other. So we could convert these and we could say, okay, 5 pi over 6 is 150 degrees. So in finding sine of 5 pi over 6, we're just going to find 5 pi over 6 on our unit circle. We're going to say, okay, well, sine of 5 pi over 6 is the y value at that particular angle. The y value at that angle is 1/2. So that's interesting. Sine of 5 pi over 6 and cosine of 60 degrees both equal 1/2. What about sine of 5 pi over 3? Well, we're going to find 5 pi over 3 on the unit circle, which is right here. 5 pi over 3 is right here. Our sine is our y value of the coordinate. So sine of 5 pi over 3 is negative square root of 3 over 2. Which usually I just say negative root 3 over 2. All right? As easy as pie, right? So let's look at a tangent problem, and then we'll introduce the reciprocal functions and how we can find exact values of those reciprocal functions. All right, so now let's find tangent of some angle. Let's find tangent of pi over 6. All right. If you remember, tangent is sine over cosine, And so tangent of pi over 6 is the sine value at pi over 6 over the cosine value at pi over 6. We learned the rule was y over x. So if I find pi over 6 on the unit circle, I'm going to take my y value, which is 1/2, corresponding to the sine value there, and divide it by root 3 over 2, which corresponds to the cosine value. I'm going to say 1/2 divided by root 3 over 2. So when dividing fractions, remember you want to change that to a multiplication problem by taking the first fraction and multiplying it by the reciprocal of the second fraction. So 1/2 divided by root 3 over 2 is going to actually turn into 1/2 times 2 over root 3. So we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. Instead of saying 1/2 divided by root 3 over 2, we're going to say 1/2 times 2 over root 3. I like to say copy, change, flip. So I copied the first fraction, I changed the division to multiplication, and then I flipped the second fraction. So now notice you have a 2 in the numerator and a 2 in the denominator, and so those two 2's actually do reduce. And so you're left with 1 over square root of 3. Which is technically the answer. That is the exact value of tangent pi over 6. However, we're actually going to manipulate this in a way such that we do not have a square root in our denominator. And we do that by a method called rationalizing. So in order to rationalize, what I want to do is multiply this fraction by something that has a ratio of 1. So in other words, if you multiply something by 1, you're not changing the value of that, right? Anything multiplied by 1 is the same value. So I want to multiply this 1 over square root of 3 by 1. However, I'm not just going to write times 1. I'm going to write a fraction that reduces down to 1. So in other words, the same thing in the numerator as in the denominator. But it has to be specific because the goal is to get rid of the radical in the denominator. One way to do that is to multiply it to itself. And so we're going to take square root of 3 and multiply it to both the top and the bottom. Now what you notice there is square root of 3 over square root of 3 reduces to 1. So I'm not changing the value of my 1 over root 3. I'm just going to manipulate it and make it look a little different. And so what happens when you multiply 1 by square root of 3? You get square root of 3. When you multiply square root of 3 times square root of 3, you get square root of 3 squared, or the square root of 9. And we all know the square root of 9 is 3. So my final answer is going to be the square root of 3 over 3. That's how I want to express the tangent of pi over 6. All right, so for the next 3 trig functions, I took the unit circle off the screen because I need a little bit more space. And so remember, we know our sine value is the y value. We know our cosine value is the x value. And we know our tangent is the y over the x, or in other words, sine over cosine. Now, there are 3 other trig functions that we will use regularly, and those 3 trig functions are known as the reciprocal trig functions. And so, in other words, sine has a reciprocal function related to it. That reciprocal function is called cosecant. So over here to the right, I'm going to write CSC, which is cosecant. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. And so if sine is equal to the y value, then cosecant is equal to the 1 over y value. All right, the reciprocal function for cosine is secant, and that's abbreviated SEC. And so if cosine is x, you got it, right? You already guessed it. Secant is 1 over x. Look at that. All right, and then lastly, the reciprocal function for the reciprocal function for tangent is cotangent, abbreviated COT. What is it? That's right. That's right. X over Y, or cosine over sine, right? Tangent is sine over cosine, and therefore cotangent is cosine over sine. So those are your three reciprocal functions. So now let's pull up the unit circle, and let's do one or two of these. All right, so now let's do a cosecant. Now, earlier I wrote cosecant as cosecant of some angle theta is 1 over the sine, which is the y value. So you could do it like that. You can say, okay, if I'm trying to find cosecant of, let's look at cosecant of 300 degrees. I know cosecant of 300 degrees, which is right here, is 1 over negative root 3 over 2 because that's the y value. All right, but now I'm in a situation where I have to divide fractions. All right, but here's the neat thing. I know cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. And so instead of looking at this as two fractions being divided, what I could do is just say, okay, well, I know cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. So sine at 300 degrees is negative root 3 over 2. Therefore, cosecant at 300 degrees is negative 2 over root 3. And now we're in a similar situation where we have to rationalize. And so think about what we need to multiply the numerator and the denominator by. Let's move this up a little bit. So that my head's not in the way. We need to multiply by root 3 over root 3. And finally, our answer is going to be negative 2 root 3 over 3. And that's how you use the unit circle to find the exact values of trig functions. Now on the next side, I'm going to list a couple of problems. I'm going to give you a little bit of time. Feel free to pause the video, work the problems out, and then after a couple of seconds, I'm going to let the answers show and check yourselves. I hope you really enjoyed this video. I'm about to go make another one. I'm going to try to pop these videos out as fast as I possibly can. So let me know what you need help with, and I'll be sure to make a video about it. Make sure you do these practice problems.